I continue to read the story by Haruki Murakami, Carnaval. This is the second part. Just one? That's right, F-Star said. Just one. The one piano piece you would take with you to a desert island. Not an easy question. I had to give it some serious thought. Schumann's Carnival, I finally declared. F-Star narrowed her eyes and gazed at me for a long time. She then rested her hands on the table, laced them together, and loudly cracked the knuckles. Exactly 10 times, so loud that the people at the nearby tables glanced our way. It was a hard sound, like snapping a 3-day-old bequet on your knee. There aren't that many people, men or women, who can crack their knuckles that loudly. I figured it out later, but loudly cracking her knuckles 10 times was her habit when she was excited and enthusiastic. I didn't know that then, however, and wondered if something had upset her. Probably my choice of a carnival was inappropriate. But there it was. The fact was, I have always loved the piece. Even if it made someone so angry that they wanted to punch me, I still wasn't going to lie about it. You're really going to go with a carnival? She frowned, raised one long finger, making sure of things. As the one piece out of all piano pieces you would take with you to the desert island? I felt unsure, not that she said this. In order to preserve Schumann's incoherent piano music, beautiful as a kaleidoscope and somehow beyond the bounds of human intellect, was I really willing to chuck Bach's Goldberg variations or well-tempered clavier, Beethoven's late piano sonatas, and his brave and charming third concerto? A brief, heavy silence followed, while F-Star pushed her fist together hard a few times, as if checking how her hands were doing. You have wonderful taste, she finally said, and I admire your courage. I'm with you. Schumann's Carnival would be my choice too. Seriously? Seriously. I have always loved it. I never get tired of it, no matter how many times I hear it. We went on for some time discussing the piece. We ordered a bottle of Pinot Noir and finished it as we talked. We became friends of a sort that evening, carnival buddies, though this relationship only lasted about half a year. So we made our own kind of a 2-member-only private carnival club. There was no reason that it had to be limited to just 2, but it never exceeded that number, since we never ran across anyone else as crazy about the piece as we were. We listened to numerous records and CDs of performances of a carnival, and if a pianist was including the piece in his concert, we did everything we could to attend together. According to my notebook, I took copious notes on each and every performance. We went to live performances of a carnival by 3 separate pianists, listened together to 42 CDs and records of the piece. Afterward, we would cozily exchange opinions on them. Turns out that a lot of pianists in all times and places have recorded the piece, which seemed to be a popular part of their repertoire. For all that, we only found a handful of performances acceptable. A performance could be technically flawless, But if the technique was not completely in sync with the music, Carnaval collapsed into nothing more than a mechanical finger exercise, and its appeal vanished. It was indeed very challenging to pull off the expression just right, beyond the abilities of your run-of-the-mill pianist. I won't name anyone, but not a few major pianists made recordings of fumbled performances, bereft of any charisma, and many other pianists avoid playing it together. At least that's the only thing I can surmise. Vladimir Horowitz loved Schumann's music and performed it throughout his career, but for some reason never made a proper recording of a Carnival. And the same can be said of Sviatoslav Richter. And I cannot be the only person who would one day love to hear Martha Argerich perform the piece. Incidentally, almost none of Schumann's contemporaries understood how wonderful his music was. Mendelssohn and Chopin, for instance, didn't think much of Schumann's piano music. Even Schumann's widow, Clara, one of the top pianists of her time, who played his music, secretly wished that he had focused on more standard-type operas or symphonies rather than this kind of a whimsical composition. Basically, Schumann wasn't fond of classical forms like the sonata, and occasionally his pieces came across as rambling and starry-eyed. He moved away from the existing classical forms, which resulted in the birth of a new type of music, the Romantic school. But most of his contemporaries thought his work was eccentric, lacking a solid foundation and content. It was this bold eccentricity, however, that propelled the rise of Romantic music. At any rate, during those 6 months, the two of us listened to Carnival every chance we got. That wasn't all we listened to, of course. Mozart and Brahms were on our menu from time to time. But whenever we might, we would end up listening to a version of a Carnival and share our reactions to the performance. I was our little club's secretary and noted down summaries of our opinions. She came to my house several times, but more often than not, I went to hers, as she lived near the center of the city, while I was out in the suburbs. After hearing 42 recorded versions of the piece, her number one choice was Arturo Benedetti Michelangelo's recording for Angel Records, and mine was Arthur Rubinstein's RCA recording. We carefully graded each and every disc we listened to, knowing, of course, that it really didn't amount to much. It was just an extra bit of fun thrown in. What was most important to us was talking about the music we loved, the feeling of almost aimlessly sharing something we were passionate about. You would think that a man seeing a woman 10 years younger this frequently would cause some discord at home. But my wife didn't worry about her at all. I won't deny that F-Star's unattractive looks played a major role in my wife's disinterest. She didn't have a bit of a suspicion or doubt that F-Star and I might fall into a sexual relationship, a major benefit her looks afforded us. My wife just seemed to find us a pair of nerds. She wasn't into classical music herself, as most concerts bored her. My wife dubbed F-star your girlfriend, and sometimes with a hint of sarcasm, your lovely girlfriend. I never met F-star's husband. She didn't have any children. Maybe by coincidence, he was out whenever I visited her place, or else she specifically chose times he wouldn't be there. Or maybe he was out most of the time. Which it was, I couldn't say. While we are on the subject, I couldn't even tell for sure if she really had a husband. She never said a single thing about him, and as far as I recall, there wasn't a trace of a man anywhere about the place. That said, she had announced that she had a husband and wore a sparkling gold wedding ring on the ring finger of her left hand. She also never said a word about her past. She never mentioned where she was from, what kind of a family she had, which schools she went to, or what kind of jobs she had had. If I asked her about personal things, all I got back was a vague innuendo or wordless smile. All I did know about her was that she worked in some specialized field and had a quite affluent lifestyle. She lived in the trendy Daikayama neighborhood in Tokyo, in an elegant 3-bedroom condo, in a building surrounded by greenery, drove a brand new BMW sedan, and had an expensive stereo system in her living room. It was a high-end, calm-face, pre-main amp and CD player with large, smart-looking lens speakers, and she always dressed in attractive, neat outfits. I don't know that much about women's clothes, but even I could tell they were pricey, designer items. When it came to music, she was eloquent. She had a sharp ear and quickly chose the most precise way of describing what she had heard. Her knowledge of music, too, was deep and broad. But when it came to anything other than music, she was pretty much an enigma. I tried my best to draw her out, but she would never open up. One time she told me about Schumann. Like Schubert, she said, Schumann battled VD when he was young, and the disease gradually affected his mind. Plus, he had schizophrenic tendencies. He regularly suffered from terrible auditory hallucinations, and his body was seized by uncontrollable trembling. He was convinced he was being pursued by evil spirits and believed in their literal existence. Pursued by endless, horrific nightmares, he tried numerous times to kill himself. Once he even flung himself into the Rhine River. Inner delusions and other after reality were intertwined within him. Carnival was early work, so the evil spirits of his weren't showing their faces clearly yet. Since the piece is about the Carnival festival, it's full of figures wearing cheerful-looking masks. But this was not merely some happy carnival. Ultimately, the evil spirits lurking within him do make an appearance in the piece, one after the other, as if introduced for a moment, wearing happy carnival masks. All around them, an ominous early spring wind is blowing. Meat dripping with blood is served to everyone. Carnival is literally the festival of thankfulness for meat and a farewell to it as Lent begins. That's exactly the kind of music it is. So the performer has to express, musically, both the mask and the face that lies beneath it for all the characters who appear. Is that what you are saying? I asked. She nodded. That's right. That's exactly right. If you cannot express that sentiment, then what's the point in performing it? The piece is the ideal of playful music, but within that playfulness, you can catch a glimpse of the specters lurking inside the psyche. The playful sounds lure them out from the darkness. She was silent for a while, and then continued. All of us, more or less, wear masks, because without masks, we cannot survive in this violent world. Beneath an evil spirit mask lies the natural face of an angel. Beneath an angel's mask lies the face of an evil spirit. It's impossible to have just one or the other. That's who we are, and that's a carnival. Schumann was able to see the many faces of humanity, the mask and the real faces, because he himself was a deeply divided soul, a person who lived in the stifling gap in between the two. Let me stop here.